What up, Muggles? This is Fyrebyrd, and you're listening to the Dusty Cauldron, where we talk about all things Harry Potter and the witchy world at large. Today, we are going to do a Wizarding Duel episode, and I have my friend Kuwie here.
Hello, hello.
We are going to dig into the amazing topic of whether or not Dumbledore is evil. Spoiler alert, he is.
Just going right off with the big guns, right at the beginning of these duels.
Yep. All right. I think I would like to start us with talking about the fact that he let Snape leave, knowing that he had heard part of the prophecy and knowing that at least one family would be hunted and killed if that information was shared.
Like I said, we're starting off strong. So, he's going to go into one of my major points of... So, first and foremost, I'm going to state that Dumbledore is not a good guy. Dumbledore is not an anti-hero by any means. No. He is a gray character. He's human. He has good points. He has bad points. Some of his decision-making, we can obviously argue on whether or not they were good. So this point right here. Snape is a double agent, right?
Not yet. At this point, he is just a Death Eater.
This is... So, we also go on how smart Dumbledore is. And does Dumbledore have the gift of foresight? No, he does not. But he can plan ahead, and he plans for contingencies. So the contingency that we're planning for is he knows how much Snape is infatuated with Lily Potter. And so we're at this point in time, we're banking on that to save Lily. So he can guarantee what one is going to be saved and what one is going to be decimated. Now, obviously, both families get attacked. So that doesn't work out for him, but that's, again, proving that he's human. So it's not necessarily the fact that he's inherently evil on letting Snape go through, leave, knowing that he had heard the prophecy. It's just going more towards his goals, towards Dumbledore's goals.
I hear that. I disagree because I think you're applying too much knowledge to it, right? So in the moment that the decision is made, what Dumbledore knows is that Snape was a loner child that was bullied at school and gave back his fair share, but it's 4-on-1, so that's bullying. That has disappeared after school and is most likely a Death Eater. Based on what we've read in canon, I don't know that we know for sure if Dumbledore knew with absolute that he was a Death Eater.
Right, and that's what I was just about to mention, is we don't know how much Dumbledore knew at that time.
Right, but so you're applying something that we know he wouldn't have known, right? Because we're saying he's counting on Snape's love of Lily. But all he's heard at this point is part of the prophecy that just says a family that has thrice defied Voldemort that's having a child. I doubt sincerely that Dumbledore would know every pregnant person in the order and exactly how many times they had fought Voldemort enough to know on the spot that applies to Lily Potter. I mean, I'm just saying, it's a reason that I think it was a callous and careless choice to just take that big of a risk, knowing that someone can pay for it, right?
Right.
A family is in jeopardy.
Yes. So this goes into one of my other major points on the ends justify the means is a terrible expression. And it's not exactly what I'm trying to go for with him, but that's the best that I can do. So, yes, the means were terrible. We just sacrificed definitely one, if not multiple families.
Psst, the ends were also terrible.
So, what was the end? So,
Dead Lily.
Dead Lily, yes, but defeated Dark Lord.
If you talk about the end.
Yes, the end. The end justifies the means. Not the middle end, not the first end, the end.
I can give you partial credit, but, like, also, that was dangerously close to, like, the greater good, Mr. Grindelwald.
So, let's look in actual history.
Okay.
So, Death Eaters are allegorical Nazis, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, let's look at actual Nazis. So, back in World War II, in the late 30s, the Nazis had the Enigma machine. And that was how they sent out their coded messages and decoded their messages. Mm-hmm. The Allies had been trying for a very long time and failing horribly to crack the Enigma code. They finally found a fully functional working Enigma machine and were able to break the Enigma code. But they didn't know if they fully broke it or not. And so they finally got a message about what was going to be the bombing of a town called Coventry, which is in the middle west side of England. It's almost right smack dab in the middle of the island. And so Churchill decided to do nothing. Instead of mounting a defense and getting the RAF to try and block the Luftwaffe, the German Air Force, I can't remember the actual German word for it at this point in time, to block them, he let it happen to prove that yes, they knew how the Enigma machine worked and that they could use it in the future, because that would also help for D-Day. This way they would know through the Enigma machine if the Germans knew about D-Day, what all they knew about D-Day, and if it was happening, if they knew that it was happening, when it was happening, where it was happening. So it was the end being justified by the means. We sacrificed this town that was obliterated, which, by the way, today has a population of about 651,000 in the metro area. So they bounced back. So it was the ends justifies the means. So our allegorical Nazis, right? We sacrifice 1, 2, 3 families. We're not even doing a whole town. We're doing a couple families. And that's going to end the Dark Lord.
And ethically that checks out for you?
Not 100%. No. I'm not going to lie. No. But that's the stance that I have to be on, is that, Dumbledore's not the bad guy. And again, I'm not saying good guy. I'm not saying great guy. I'm saying not the bad guy. Okay. So he's not an anti-hero, no. Great character. Has bad attributes to him. Has bad decisions to him. But not the bad guy.
Okay.
Winston Churchill. Not the bad guy.
But not a good guy.
Asshole, yes. Racist bastard, yes. Unapologetic about his flaws, yes. Did he get England through the Blitz? Yes. Abraham Lincoln did the most to hinder American civil rights and liberties, but is lauded as the purveyor of civil liberties. He suspended habeas corpus for the duration of the Civil War. Was that a great thing to do? No, you could get locked up just on suspected of being on the side of the Confederacy for the duration of the war. So 4 years without even getting charges brought to you. So not a cool thing to do. But it's what he had to do to preserve the Union. This is what Dumbledore had to do to defeat the Dark Lord, to defeat Voldemort.
I feel like Abraham Lincoln is actually such a great comparison for Dumbledore that I am legitimately upset I never thought about it like that. Particularly because I feel like I had the same sort of waking up to how flawed and debatably evil Dumbledore is that I had with Abraham Lincoln. Mm-hmm. Because growing up, that was my favorite part of history to study, and I just thought that he was the bee's knees, and he really wasn't.
Well, bee's knees are kind of hairy and like spiky, so...
I mean, that's a valid point. Okay. So what do you think about him keeping the cloak, also a Deathly Hallow, when it could have served as a last line of defense for the Potters to live?
Again, he's human. He has... Okay. Wait. I know. So he... Okay. Let's go even further back into his history. Grindelwald, right? Mm-hmm. Dumbledore was dipping those toes into the dark arts, right? After the death of his sister, he turns his back on that. But he still has that inner need for the Hollows. Because that's what he was going for, you know. I believe the Resurrection Stone was originally for his parents, correct?
I think it would have just been his mom at that point, because I think his dad was in prison, not dead.
So,
yeah.
but still, it's a selfish means, yes, but also good intended.
Sort of. There's a certain level of sociopathy to it, though.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to do these bad things because I had a consequence for my evil behavior is not proof of not being evil. It's that society pressured me because this is shunned as a bad thing. Therefore, I must change my behavior.
Okay. Potty training a child. I still want to go to the bathroom in my diapers, but I'm being told that's not right. Even though I still want to, I'm going to stop doing it because I'm tired of getting in trouble for it. I realize that I just made that comparison of Dumbledore pooping his diapers.
So my struggle is like, I don't know that we're trying, like, to me, this argument is not, is he the bad guy? It's, is he evil?
Evil? Okay.
And how do I define evil?
And that right there's the crux of the matter. Because we could get into a definition war for the duration of this episode on how we're going to define evil.
Mm-hmm.
So, depending on how you define it, I've got no grounds to stand on. Yeah, is any unethical or immoral decision evil? Then yeah, I've got no room to talk on this end of the argument.
I think it would be more of like, is it a pattern of consistent, unethical, or callous, or purely self-motivated behaviors? Like, is that something that's established continually with a person? So it's not like making a mistake and being human. It's like, I routinely make the choice that's good for me and bad for others. Like, that's what I think of when I'm thinking of a person that I would call evil.
Okay. So, does he make some callous choices? Yes. Does he make some selfish choices? Yes. Are they negatively or adversely affecting the entire population?
Yes.
Okay. Which one?
Every child that went to Hogwarts and now has PTSD or chronic PTSD or complex PTSD or died when they didn't have to,
mm-hmm.
or Sirius Black who served 12 years in prison for no reason.
Who gave zero defense?
He didn't get a chance. And who was a main player on the Wizengamot during that time?
And then years later, after he escapes prison and he has the chance, does he even mount a defense for himself?
No, but would you argue that he had a chance when they don't have Pettigrew? So he just walks into the ministry and says, I have proof that I didn't do it, except I can't show you the proof. So I guess you could kill me now. Okay.
So by that logic, what proof did he have at that point in time when Pettigrew disappeared?
I think that if Dumbledore had actually stood up for someone that was a member of his order at the time and tried to ensure that he got any sort of defense, he would have at least gotten the chance to talk about the fact that they had switched secret keepers. And then they could have, checked his wand for spells cast.
Okay. If we're going to go on down that rabbit hole, there's a lot that we could debate in this universe. So that's a loaded argument.
We are devolving. Let's circle back to Dumbledore.
Yeah. So I made the point about Coventry, right?
Yeah.
And so and that's one of my whole points of the ends justify the means. So was Churchill evil in allowing Coventry to be bombed and allowing innocent British civilians to die in the Blitz? Is that evil?
Debatable. So my gut says yes, that was not the right choice to make. I get that they were able to prove a hypothesis about whether or not they had broken a code by making that choice. But I think if you put enough minds together, you can find a way to prove a hypothesis without slaughtering a town.
So if we did mount a defense, that could have also tipped off Hitler that the Enigma code had been broken.
But to be fair, I didn't say mount a defense. I said to come up with a solution.
Depending on what the solution is, though. So at the time, and in their minds, that was the best solution, was to let it play out and see what happens. And then this way we know that anything that we do from here on out, we can monitor from their own lines of communications. We don't have to worry about double agents. We don't have to worry about spies. We can monitor from their own communications on if they know what we're doing or not. So that was the sacrifice that had to be made.
Did they have the consent of anyone that got sacrificed?
In 1940, no.
Do we get sacrifice? Yes, we get sacrifices today. Do we get consent today? Probably not.
As a government, do you get the consent of every single person that you govern before you make any decision?
No, but there's a big difference between deciding whether or not I'm going to institute attacks and whether or not I'm going to watch you be brutally murdered.
I can't, there's facial expressions and things that I'm doing over here. I can't deny a lot of what you're saying. And in good conscience, I cannot do it.
But you have valid points too, even if they make my blood boil.
Yeah. Even for this debate, I mean, I understand. It's not cool. It's a black mark in history. But again, it's do the ends justify the means. What was the means? What was the end? Excuse me, for that means. The means being the destruction of Coventry. The end result is we know that the Enigma code has been broken, and we can monitor their communications. We can now mount attacks and defenses as need be without Hitler knowing. We can now invade Germany. We can invade Normandy. So, circling back to our debate here, Dumbledore's ends were justified by his means. The end being the downfall and or destruction of Voldemort.
I hear that. Kind of going back to the point about the Hallow.
Mm-hmm.
What is the ends and means there if we're going to apply that theory? Like, so what he wants is to be the master of death,
mm-hmm.
and this is a tool to do that. How does that serve protecting the Potters?
It does not protect the Potters, because James Potter is the holder of one of those Hallows. So, if he's no longer the holder of the Hallow, I get the Hallow. Again, selfish means.
Right. Callous decision making.
Mm-hmm.
This person doesn't matter. Only what I want matters.
Small sacrifices.
Okay.
Not so heavy on the emphasis on small, but but it's all towards the end goal, because if I have as many Hallows as possible, I can definitely defeat magic Nazi Hitler. Voldemort. Why did I forget his name? Oh.
No judgment. It's because for so long you've been, don't say the name, right? So just forget the name. So I can get on board with that as a thought in the construct of he would believe that. But what proof does he have that collecting the Hallows means he will defeat Voldemort?
We don't. What proof do we have that
that Kuwie's brain just broke?
Yeah. Frizzles. I gotta think of
I feel like what you were gonna ask me is what proof do we have that the Potters would have survived if they had the cloak? We don't.
Yeah. You know.
But they'd have more of a fighting chance
because it's all supposition.
Yeah.
And let's face it, Dumbledore's a more powerful wizard than James Potter was, than Lily Potter was.
Was he, or did he just have the Elder Wand?
He did not have the Elder Wand when he defeated Grindelwald, did he?
No, but we don't know what happened when he defeated Grindelwald. Like, maybe he just took it from his pocket while they were kissing.
All right, fair point. I don't remember that.
I'm not sure that him actually making out with Grindelwald is canon, but him being gay was declared canon by She Who Shall Not Be Named.
Yes, but she also, in a tizzy, made everybody gay. It was like, watch out, who's going to be gay next? And then became one of the biggest TERFs possible. Moving on.
Right. That's why we routinely remind everyone that Harry Potter was not written by anyone. It simply appeared in the universe.
But again, you know, people are human. Right, people are human.
Sorry, that laugh was like a hyena laugh.
You know, we make bad decisions. All of us. Does that mean that we're evil?
Again, I go back to pattern, right?
Okay.
Consistency. Like, if you occasionally fuck up, you're human. If you consistently make choices that ruin people's lives, you're evil.
So the more power you have, the bigger your decisions are, and the more they affect. So,
are you like trying to quote Dumbledore right now? Like, he literally has a quote about this, like something
because I'm on his side for this debate.
He
That's
equated
what I'm
it
going
to
for.
intelligence. Like, because of my intelligence, when I make a mistake, they're so much worse than other people's. But that was a terrible quote, but he said something like that sounded smarter.
No offense taken. But that's what I'm getting at, though, is that with the level of power that you have, your decisions hold greater weight. So if you fuck up, it's going to be a bigger mess. You know, if I make a bad decision, it affects me and maybe 10 other people. If a schoolmaster makes a bad decision, it affects the entire school, their families, and so on and so forth. A government head makes a decision, that's going to affect the entire country, if not 1 or 2 or 3 other countries.
But that means you have an obligation to be more
to not
ethical.
fuck up. Yes, I understand.
Also to not fuck up, but to be more ethical, to think harder before you make choices. So as a leader, right, I'm a CEO. I've got when I envision how leadership works, I envision 2 bank accounts, right? And I have an authority bank account and a goodwill bank account. And if you interact with the authority bank account, that's a debit. So not only am I pulling money out of the authority bank account, I'm actually pulling money out of the goodwill bank account in order to make that decision. When I make a decision out of a goodwill bank account, it's a credit, and it credits both the authority and the goodwill bank account. I have to be conscientious about which bank account I'm using so that I don't run in the red.
Right.
I think you could easily envision that you also have a was that right bank account. And frankly, I think that I kind of do that too without ever trying to put this into a metaphor, because my whole theme for this last year was what's the next right decision? Always focused on what is the thing that gets our mission done but protects my people and protects my passengers. That's what you should be doing as a leader. It shouldn't be what's the thing that I could do that is ruthless and will hurt all of these people, but it might get to the mission.
So I don't think the amount of ruthlessness? No. The opposite of being ruthless.
Ruth.
That's Ridgeback, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm here all week.
Ruth. I'm an English teacher's son.
We could say goodwill. I don't know what word we mean.
Yeah. So the lack of ruthlessness. I forgot my point. Where was I going with it? Ruth.
You were going to say like something about the level of it, and I feel like it was going to influence something, like the level of not being ruthless does or does not influence X, your point that I can't actually read your mind.
Yeah. Well, we haven't been sharing the brain long enough.
This is a new process.
So your point of whatever ruthless or callous decision I make might carry out my ends. And I was going to say that I don't think with Dumbledore it was necessarily I'm going to make a ruthless, callous, screw everybody decision. It was still calculated. Everything he did was still calculated. It was still what is going to cause the least amount of collateral damage. Because as the CEO of a transit company, that is a lot different decision making than fighting in a war for literally yours and everybody else's lives.
I mean, sometimes it doesn't feel like that, but you got a point.
So I am not in the military. I've never been in the military, so I can't say with that certainty of collateral damage or anything like that. But having been a student of history, there are sacrifices that do have to be made in war, especially when your enemy is as ruthless as that. You know, whatever means possible to get to the end. So he's not okay. It's bad to say he's not as bad as Hitler, but
and yet, I don't know that we can.
So again, we go back to my real life examples: Lincoln, Churchill, Martin Luther King. You know, he was not the best human around, but does that mean that some of his negative decisions should be held against him and everything that he's done for the black community and for civil rights?
I do not have enough melanin to answer that question.
But that's my point, is the bad decisions we make and some of the negative outcomes from those decisions are those to be held against us in the grand scheme of trying to end this incredible event.
Yes and no. I am gonna...
And there's enough of the yes that helps me say he's not evil. Bad guy? Maybe. Not the best guy? Maybe. Evil? No.
Disagree. And also, you mean there's enough of a no, because I'm saying yes, as in it should be held against you.
Anyways.
Yeah. But no, really. I think that at the end of the day, if you're going to ask the question, was someone a good or bad person, or was someone evil or not evil, you have to take the whole score. You can't just take the highlights and say, see, look at all these nice things. You have to look at the whole picture.
No, exactly. But when you take into account the whole picture, and, you know, if you're going to talk score, okay, this is 10 points, this is minus 4 points, this is 8 points, this is minus 4 points. What's the overall score?
I think it would net negative. I mean, I haven't gone through and created a point system.
Right.
I can if that's what you want.
Well, I know you would, too. I don't want to suck that much time of your life away.
I'm too busy developing an RPG campaign.
An entire religion. But I think it would. I think it would be positive. Because, again, let's take my real life examples into account with World War II. Hitler, if he won. If D-Day did not happen. If Mussolini had not done all of this stupid crap he did. And ended up being a bigger powerhouse for Italy, and Italy being a bigger powerhouse than they were in World War II. All of those things, you know, and the Axis won. Is that not a negative? So is beating the Axis a positive? Beating Hitler, is that a positive?
Yeah, that's a positive.
So beating Voldemort, defeating Voldemort.
Can you credit Dumbledore with that?
Singularly, no. Can I singularly credit Winston Churchill or FDR? No. It was a combination. It was a combined effort. So his actions for the overall goal of defeating Voldemort, I am saying, would be a positive. Am I saying is it a high positive? No. But it's a positive. I hate to say the ends justify the means, because they don't, especially if you have the worst means. But for him, that's where we were. That's how we had to do it. That's how we had to beat Voldemort. Was because what other options did we have? Especially when you have this hidden world of magic versus the Muggle world and all of the Muggle world problems. You know, now you've got a separate issue altogether of keeping all of this contained and away from the Muggles. You know, so we have that separate issue as well. So you got to give him some credit on that, on keeping it away from the Muggles, because Voldemort, given the choice, would have gone, you know, as soon as he took over the actual wizarding world, he would have gone right to the Muggles. And England first, obviously. and then just spiderweb after that, because what are we going to do against that level of evil and magic?
But also, there's other magic all over the world. It's making an assumption of like Eurocentric power, and that only the English wizards matter.
Well, no, I get what you're saying there, but it's. I'm going off a domino effect on that one.
But it's
because
a slippery slope.
It's all supposition.
Yeah.
Because one, it's a fake world. So no. So I mean, we're debating.
It's real to us.
We're debating fictional characters with fictional decisions in a fictional world. Mm-hmm. But how are we to know if all of this did happen, how it would have gone out had XYZ happened?
Have you ever read fan fiction?
Just like, well, some of those fan fictions.
That's a whole other rabbit hole.
Yeah. But it's just like in real life, had, one event not happened, how would that have changed world events? Or how would this very specific event gone differently? Like, I can think of so many examples off the top of my head that I can't even pick one.
Valid. Let's just add another weight to the karmic scale in this decision of Dumbledore. Right. Hiring an unrepentant Death Eater to teach children and ignoring his consistent and malicious abuse and bullying behaviors for decades.
Double agent.
Literally, there is a child whose Bogart is their teacher because of how badly he abuses them.
Okay. Now, I am not attacking Mr. Longbottom at all.
I don't like how this is starting.
But he did not exactly have the most stable of mental states to begin with.
Why is that?
Yes, I know. But was that Snape's problem?
No, we're not arguing about Snape. We're arguing about Dumbledore.
This is true. So, that being said, it's not necessarily a loyalty thing on keeping him on staff. It's one, he knows how powerful this wizard is, because Snape is not a weakling. He definitely knows his stuff. Two, the service that he did provide during the war. And three, that whole, if you keep your friends close and your enemies closer. Yes, he was a double agent. Yes, he's fairly unrepentant about it. But this is why I need to keep him close, so I can keep an eye on him.
I don't disagree with that point. There is no reason to subject him to children.
How else am I going to keep the most eye on him if I'm a headmaster of a school and I don't necessarily ever... I do, but I don't relieve the school a lot. I have my school
Are there
duties.
only teachers at schools?
So how else can I keep him on board? What am I going to do? Make him caretaker?
Research position. He doesn't even like kids. He could literally be working on writing a new potions book, uses Hogwarts as his base for research.
As his base. So that means he's leaving.
Well, then don't let him leave.
Then how's he going to research?
Order the books by owl.
No. What?
He'll send an owl to this place and be like, send me this book.
It depends on the research, right? And now we're getting deep into that rabbit hole, so I'm going to get back out of that real quick. But that's why. That's my reasonings on why I keep him around, for the fact of keeping an eye on him. One, if he still is my ally, he's a powerful ally. Two, if he's not my ally, I know exactly where he is and what he's doing.
But does
best decision
that
to subject it to children? No, not the best decision. But that's not been my platform this entire debate of him making the best decisions.
How many bad decisions do you get to make before you're held accountable?
How many good decisions, if he made, would we have a series?
I think you could still have a series about defeating Voldemort without driving it forward with negligence and abuse to children. I think you can still have a very interesting story and have adults that are emotionally healthy and caring. I've read several very good fan fictions that weren't super porny. That I'm just saying, where Sometimes it's McGonagall. Sometimes it's Sirius Black, which is really weird. Sometimes it's Mad-Eye Moody. But they've got like a very caring adult that is there trying to steer things in a way that is healthy.
Okay,
And they're
McGonagall,
interesting.
I would say, would be one of the most caring, sincere
Absolutely.
adults in that entire series. But that's not what this debate is about.
No, we're not debating how awesome McGonagall is. We're debating how not awesome Dumbledore is.
Ooh, maybe that's our next one.
I guess. We could do that before Snape.
So,
Does that mean I have to argue the
a little
other side?
background here. In case you haven't noticed by my fairly weak points, I am on the side of Fyrebyrd here. I don't inherently evil, no. Good guy, no. I honestly don't think that. But for the sake of this debate, I have taken the stance of he is not evil, and so
You just ruined the whole episode.
I do have to debate this. But and this can all get cut out. But we made the deal that one of the next debates, she had to fight the uphill battle.
It's true. So
So
if I have to argue that Minerva is not caring, that's going to be real hard. I might need to
Yeah.
reread the series.
yeah,
Okay. All
I
right.
don't know if I'm that evil.
Okay.
'Cause I'm not Dumbledore.
Right? Okay. So
Moving on.
let's talk about more choices. Luring Voldemort, or at least Voldemort's spirit, because at this point it could be argued that Dumbledore doesn't know what he's getting into with that, to Hogwarts to get the Philosopher's Stone when it's full of children. And I highly suspect that this was used as a way to test Harry's skill and bravery.
And deep magic of Lily's sacrifice.
Yeah.
Another thing to test. But how are we to know what our weapons are if we cannot field test them? So we can have as much hypotheses as possible, but until we test our hypotheses, we won't know how well they're going to hand up against the real thing.
I don't disagree, but again,
Children,
do
I
we have
understand.
consent, and can a child consent to anything?
Especially with Harry and what I mean, we can talk for another 40 minutes easy about Dumbledore's decisions with Harry alone. Dropping him off with the Dursleys, having him face Quirrell alone, basically. Yeah, he had his friends with him, but did Dumbledore expect the friends to survive?
They're all 11.
They're 11.
Well, I think Hermione might have been 12. But
Relevant.
shut up.
They're all preteens. Mm-hmm. You know, so
I think I win that point. Okay.
um,
Some of them have been debatable on who won it. I think I won that point.
so yeah.
Let's talk about whether he either didn't notice that Quirrell was possessed for an entire year, despite the fact that he can feel dark magic. This is proven in Book 6 when they go after the Horcrux locket, or knew that Quirrell was possessed and did nothing about it.
So it would be hard to not notice the difference in Quirrell. Him having had been a professor.
No. So we all make this assumption when reading it, right? Like, oh, Quirrell went away for the summer. He came back. He was really
No,
weird.
he went on a
That
sabbatical.
But every single person can only be the Dada teacher for a year. So the last time he would have seen Quirrell should have been when Quirrell was a student. So not that I want to argue your point, but it could be argued that the change in behavior would be missed because you could leave college confident and come back to a job not confident.
So the canon is that he was a professor before. He was Muggle studies.
What? Keep talking. I'm Googling this. If you just told me a Harry Potter thing I don't know, I might have to go, jump off the
Then
bridge.
that means I win. So he was a Muggle studies professor, went on sabbatical, and that's when he ran into the Voldemorts.
Okay, so you were saying...
So
noticing the change in behavior.
So I'm actually making points for you here. We would have noticed the behavior. We would have noticed the behavior change because he wasn't exactly the most confident person, but we go from that to poor old stuttering Quirrell. So yes, we would have noticed that. Again, this is. Oh, we're making faces. Are we making faces that we're jumping off bridges now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What the?
Yeah. I'm marking this on the calendar. I knew something in the Harry Potter wizarding universe that Fyrebyrd did not.
I'm upset.
Yeah, so he wasn't the Dada professor right out of high school. He was a different professor.
This just leads to more questions. Who goes on sabbatical and comes back to like a different profession, essentially? Like there is a huge difference between Muggle studies and Defense Against the Dark Arts.
Yes.
So while I am like devastated by this moment of negligence and lack of knowledge on my own part, this is still proving my point.
Yes, I'm doing a terrible job at this.
But you still win because this is a moment. Like,
yeah,
I'm gonna cry myself to sleep.
No, this is a personal win. For the debate, no, I have started to stack the cards against me. Like I said, I'm making points for you right now. But this is a personal win that I will take.
To the grave. I'm just kidding.
Might be early if I'm not careful.
All right, let's move on from Quirrell because I'm now going to have PTSD about this moment of my life. So I don't know if this one, for me, is a choice that I would call the choice evil, but more it's further establishing a pattern of negligence and overt self-involvement to the point of other people's detriment. Never asking Myrtle how she died, despite being her teacher and seeing the patterns repeating of the circumstances that happened right before she died.
So this is hard to debate on that because, again, how would we have that novel? How would we have that book? From a real-world perspective, hard to debate on that one because, again, like character arcs and so on and so forth.
I think you
moments.
still could, because Myrtle didn't know it was a basilisk. They may have been able to figure out the Tom Riddle thing.
And so do you know for a fact that Dumbledore does not know how she died?
When Harry and Ron ask her, she says that no one's ever asked her how she died.
That doesn't mean that he doesn't know.
How else would he know? The only person in the room was Myrtle.
He could, his own investigation, and especially if he knows or at least suspects that the chamber is a real thing.
So, but is that still callous then? That I know or I suspect that Voldemort is a bad guy, or Tom Riddle at this point, and that he is the one doing the chamber, even though Hagrid's going to take the fall for it, and this student is dead by some magical means. I don't need to look into what those are.
Well, that's the thing, is that he can guess, he can do his own detective work on that, but he can't.
But did he?
But he can't. No, we don't know. We don't know that he did, but we also can't prove that he didn't.
Well, we can prove he left out a key piece, asking the victim, because it's a circumstance where you actually can. So not doing that is negligent. If she weren't a ghost, I wouldn't be negligent.
Right. Would he expect her to answer or even remember? Yes, you could ask to be certain, but now we're really getting into this, possibly this, possibly this, possibly.
So
this.
We're in the weeds, right? But I'm in the weeds of talking about what are his motivations for choices. And to assume that she wouldn't remember or that she wouldn't know or whatever, like to not give her the agency to tell her story is inherently callous. It's assuming that you know more than her even though she experienced it.
So I hate to say this, but 1950s male versus 1950s young teenage female.
Insert unending scream.
But yeah, I mean, I'm with you on that, but we also must remember the time.
Yes.
and the who, and
That
the
doesn't
where,
mean he's not
and
evil.
the when, and the age. Because
Throw a temper tantrum.
how old is Dumbledore at that point in time?
At least 50.
Okay, so a 50-year-old dude, professor, is going to now ask the ghost of a perpetually depressed 12-year-old girl?
If he is a person who genuinely cares about children and wants good things for them, yes.
Your face right now, I'm sorry.
I promise that Kuwie will be safe. He will make it home to his wife.
But, it's the time and place. The who, the what, the where, the why.
Okay.
I mean, that factors into that.
It's a valid
I mean,
point.
we've come a long way in the last 60 years, 70 years. But,
Oh my god, it's been 70 years since the 50s.
yeah. It's been 30 years since 1990.
I don't want to talk about it. All right, I'll give you half credit.
Oh, thanks.
All right, so keeping Harry isolated and in an abusive home with no one even attempting to protect him from that abuse in any way.
So, rub some dirt on it. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. A little PTSD never hurt anybody.
Refer back to episode 1 about Harry Potter's PTSD. Who is responsible for said PTSD, and is that a good person?
Voldemort. And no, he's not.
Fuck you. I think there are several people responsible for that PTSD.
Okay, so it's a tough thing on that one. I don't fully like it, but I do actually agree with a lot of the reasonings. So some of the reasonings. We've got the old magic, the mother sacrifice, right?
That we don't care about for at least 9 months a year while he's at school. So why doesn't he just stay at
Because
Hogwarts?
Hogwarts is a more protected area.
Why can't he just stay at Hogwarts?
What kid stays at Hogwarts year round?
How many exceptions are made for Harry Potter? Yeah, agreed.
And that could be one that we just could not make. We keep him from being expelled, but we can't let him live year round. And during the summer, professors go home.
Do we have proof of that?
No. That's my assumption. Is that, there's, and even if they don't go home, there's also sabbaticals and things like that, and they go on trips and things like that. So not everybody's there, and it's a lot easier to get on that one person when there's less people around. Now we throw him into the Muggle world with his family, who, yes, are bastards, the lot of them.
There might be hope for Dudley.
Dudley has redeeming moments. Especially towards the end.
Mm-hmm.
Like we start to get it, but
If he went to some solid therapy, Dudley'd be a good person.
mostly. So, but it's so we have the magical protection, and the fact that do a lot of the wizarding world have, like, I don't want to say like census data or anything like that, but do they have ways of tracking on the Muggle side of things? Because
I
those
think
that
only
are
if magic happens.
right, those that are deep into the magic world, like, what is the purpose of a rubber duck?
Joy.
Right, so they've lost that connection to the Muggle world. So it's the perfect hiding. It's keeping him alive. Yes, he's getting mentally tortured on the daily for the first 11 years of his life. And physically tortured,
To an
mostly
extent.
daily.
Yeah.
But
But
it
again,
keeps him alive.
But we're not looking for solutions that preserve the child. Place a magical nanny instead of a squib down the street with cats.
Magic. Magic, magic, magic. We can detect magic. We can
Kingsley
track magic.
Shacklebolt is a bodyguard to the minister, the Muggle minister. It's established that we can have a person exist in the Muggle world without being known as being magical.
Yes, but the magical world can track the magical person and whatever magic he or she does.
Get a different wand.
It's still magic happening. He's like, wow, this Privet Drive seems to have a lot of magic in this one fucking house. Multiple wands. That's weird. Let's go check this shit out.
I don't think it would register like that, but I hear you. But like, so don't do magic at work. But also,
you know the thing that your entire society hinges on? Yeah, don't do it.
just at work. You can do it when you go home. Now I'm saying that the person's not there at nighttime. This is a problem. This theory doesn't work. Let me move on to my next point.
Point for me.
Yeah. Why are we sending him back after 4th year when we know that that magic doesn't work anymore?
Back to magic. Tracking magic.
No, like, we're not tracking Harry Potter's magic because we don't have the ability to do that. He hasn't taken over the ministry yet, so he can't trace Harry's wand through the trace that's on underage wizards' wands.
So he has no sleeper agents in the ministry at this point in time?
Not in book 4.
Are you sure? Sleeper agents, my dear. Sleeper agents. People that are not out in the open about their alignments.
But
We don't know. We don't know.
That's not the definition of a sleeper agent. A sleeper agent is like, okay. Anyway.
But the point being made, does he have any people in the ministry at this point in time? We don't know. Nobody out in the open, obviously, but we don't know.
Fair point. However, sending him back to that house doesn't add the protection. The protection is broken in the graveyard when he uses Harry Potter's blood.
Yes. And that's why he's using the blood, is to
break the
nullify
protection. So why are we continuing to send him to an abusive household under the guise that it's to protect him because he must call this his house once a year when that protection is not real anymore?
Again, where else are we going to put him?
The burrow.
Which, as we see in, what is that, book 6 or 7, is so very protected.
Privet Drive wasn't protected. He almost got killed there in the battle over Privet Drive. Mm-hmm. The difference would be he's not getting abused in the lead up to the attack.
Rub some dirt on it. I got nothing.
I'm starting to think you were born in the 50s.
I got nothing for that. Honestly, I mean, there, especially off the top of my head, I got nothing.
Okay.
Punto.
Punto. I literally thought you called me a bad word in Spanish for a second.
No, there's an N in there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I had to think of the two words.
Right? Continually putting Harry in deadly situations, not even trying to train him for them, just throwing him to the wolves.
Because we can resurrect him.
Did he know that?
Yeah.
How?
Because he knows.
Dumbledore is all-knowing. Dumbledore is God.
Well, depending on the headcanon.
I guess that makes God is dead true.
We just pissed off a lot of people.
Oh yeah, probably. If they made it to this episode, they're not pissed off. There's a heavily feminist episode leading up to this one.
It's why I'm here now.
Okay, so we're just gonna give me that point and move on.
Yeah, fuck it, sure.
Fair. Okay. Recruited children to fight 2 wars, and in both cases may not have given them adequate training. I can't speak to Woods. It could be argued the first war they had more training because many of them also were Aurors.
Yes, and especially in the second one, we don't have a whole lot of training for the children that are ending up fighting our war because of the curriculum that we have set forth to make sure that Harry does meet his inevitable end. Now, this is another point that you're going to be making here in a little bit. But yes, that screws over a lot of children in the meantime. An entire generation does not have the adequate magical training
To protect themselves, let alone fight a war.
Yes. It's the best I got. And then we get to, I'm going to go ahead and cut you off right now, and we're going to get to the raising a pig for slaughter.
We're leading that way. I have one last point before that, which is
okay.
deliberately slow walking knowledge to Harry to be withheld until the most important part, which could then lead to his death at any moment.
Because that is the most dramatic way to write a book.
Abandoning an infant on the doorstep in the middle of the night in November.
I knocked on the door.
When people were sleeping.
Yeah. And it's not like McGonagall's gonna just like disappear. She stuck around.
Proof that she stayed there till morning when they got the baby?
Proof that she didn't.
Fuck you. I was prepared for the argument about a warming charm. I was not prepared for McGonagall. All right. Turned a blind eye to multiple murders from Moody and everything with Umbridge.
How much power did he actually have to fight the Ministry? How much political power does Dumbledore have to fight what is coming directly from the Minister of Magic? So
in book 4, a lot. In
Okay.
book 5, no. So I would give you Umbridge.
Okay. As far as Moody's concerned, it's Moody. He's weird. He's the guy with the crazy eye. I got nothing for Moody.
So, we'll split it. We each get half a point on
Yeah.
that one.
So for those keeping tally, I have 12 and a half now. She has 9.
I disagree.
It's the only way I'm winning.
It's all made up and the points don't matter.
I mean, basically, I would pose it, especially at the end of this, is who do you think won? Talk about it in the comments. It's what I thought of on the drive over here, was doing something like that. Who won? Who's next?
I guess I kind of ended up touching on this in the beginning, but then there's another part to it, so I'm just going to say the whole thing.
Okay.
Allowing Sirius to rot in Azkaban and then Grimmauld Place with no trial either time, and didn't even ever, visit him to try to get more information or see if he's mentally doing okay, because there's clearly some arrested development happening there. Oh, but we'll forgive Snape. But fuck Sirius
So anywhere Dumbledore goes,
is chaos and catastrophe.
how many eyes are on him? Could we also argue that, especially at this point in time, the Minister has him flagged to be monitored at all times?
That would be logical. But he is still traveling to headquarters for meetings. So why doesn't he just stay after meetings? Because obviously it's worth the risk to travel there.
A once-in-a-while deal? Worth a risk.
Is still better than no check-in whatsoever, though. So if you're already there, even a 5-minute conversation to see how this guy's doing.
Which we never see. We only get these books from Harry's perspective. So we don't know if, especially on the times that Harry's just dicking off with a creature or whatever,
Yeah.
we don't know that Dumbledore is or isn't having a conversation with Sirius.
Gut check. Tell me, do you believe that conversation happened?
Honestly, tough to say. I cannot say one way or the other. I don't know. With gut check,
I appreciate your honesty.
I don't know. But just like my other point for, letting him rot and so on and so forth, of just because we know it didn't happen doesn't mean we know that it did. Like, we have no evidence one way or the other that
That is
happened.
something about Harry as a narrator that is extremely frustrating.
Right, because we don't have an omniscient narrator.
Mm-hmm.
We have that one perspective. So, again, what evidence does Sirius have to bring to the table 12 years after the fact of, no, I didn't kill Peter Pettigrew? You could ask him. Oh, he's a Death Eater now. Oh, we can't find him.
Mm-hmm.
What does he have in his defense besides hearsay? Nothing.
I don't disagree with that.
So-
And so, I don't even argue that Dumbledore should have tried to get him a trial after book 3. But I think you have an obligation to check on the man that you're essentially keeping prisoner.
Right. And again, we don't know if he did or if he didn't. We can't prove one way or the other. So I'm not saying moot point, but I'm saying can't debate.
I think we can infer, based on how he treats Harry in book 6, that type of neglectful behavior is likely demonstrated to other people.
And I would also
Book 5.
argue,
Sorry.
which now we're... Because Book 6 Dumbledore is a little bit different than Book 5 Dumbledore.
Book 6 isn't negligent of interaction with Harry because he's actively having those private lessons with him.
Because I would argue with Book 6 Dumbledore, we are getting more and more desperate. So our actions are becoming less and less calculated. And our risks are becoming greater. Our risk-reward ratio is getting more and more skewed.
Which is true.
I would suggest in Book 6. I mean, why else is he personally dipping his hand in there and messing up his hand and then drinking the poison?
Well,
and so on
also
and so
only
forth.
because, like, he's the only one that has the knowledge because he does this master manipulator shit with all of his people.
Thus saving all of his people.
How many? Did he save all of them? Should we count how many people died?
So are we saying that the ones that are saved are just whatever?
No.
Too bad they're saved?
No, we're not saying it's bad that they were saved. We're saying that you don't trade out a life for a life.
So, no, you don't. No, I don't.
But an evil person does.
But a gray person does.
I'll send you to therapy. He did once want to conquer the Muggle world.
And then didn't. And then stepped away from that life. And reformed.
And why was that? Was it because he was not sure if he was the one that killed his sister, or was it because he realized he was wrong?
How about D, all the above? How about the death of his sister, whether he knew it was him or not, helped him to realize that he was wrong?
Do we know that he realized he was wrong because he still believed in the greater good when he died?
Do we know he didn't?
His actions say he still believes in the greater good, so yes, we do.
So, yeah, he still believes in the greater good.
He believes
My points!
He believes in ruthlessness for the greater good, which was his whole philosophy when he wanted to conquer Muggles.
So if he were a D&D character, his alignment would be chaotic good.
Lawful neutral.
Does he have a strict code that he abides by?
Yes. Look at his choices. It may not be right, but it's what he believes is right.
Which is a little more chaotic.
I don't know. Let's not delve into this stuff.
I would
we
go
could have a whole
chaotic
episode.
good.
I think lawful neutral, but that's a whole other argument.
Yeah.
That'd be another hour.
But that right there is the difference in our perspectives right here. That's why we have the talking points that we do. I'm saying chaotic good, and I'm doing, whatever is in my power for the good. Mm-hmm. And I'm doing just because. Whereas a lawful neutral character does whatever for them. They have a strict code that they're for, but it's for them. So a lawful neutral Dumbledore is all about Dumbledore. Where I would argue that the book Dumbledore is more about the greater good. Mm-hmm. Yes, there's some selfishness in there, but who isn't in some way, shape, or form a little selfish in some of their actions? Mm-hmm. So for the greater good, Dumbledore.
Okay. So I have a couple other points I want to say, but then I'm going to admit defeat, and I will explain why. My other points were that it's really questionable that he gave a 13-year-old the ability to meddle with time and use it to break the law, and in fact advised her to do so. I think that there's an issue with mentally and emotionally manipulating everyone around you, particularly Harry, Snape, Slughorn, and Newt Scamander. I think it's a problem to set up your death with Snape and tell no one so you know you're literally fucking him over and leaving no evidence. All of that said, I just realized that I agree with you that he's gray because I said lawful neutral, not lawful evil.
So, and I was going to make that point as well. The last thing that I want to touch on, I'm going to skip over some of those. I'm going to go right to his death. Screws over Snape? Yes. Saves Draco. Not only does he save Draco lawfully, but saves his soul. And saves the good...
At the price of Snape's.
Who had what kind of soul left?
We had no proof that Snape had ever killed anyone.
We have no proof that he didn't. I love that argument. That's a dead argument, but I love it.
I just want to kill you every time you use it.
But we save the child.
For the first time in the series.
Is that not a redeeming moment?
Does it redeem everything?
Is it not a redeeming moment?
Yes.
Okay. So we save Draco, who arguably needed saving the most. Do we want another Lucius running around after all of this is done?
Well, you could even argue that he could be a Tom Riddle, really. Left unchecked. Okay, so he's like shale gray, like slate gray. Like, what is the pewter gray? He's pewter gray.
That's silver. All right, I'll take it.
Well, it's dark gray. Like, they used to make the Warhammer models out of pewter, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is dark. He's dark gray. I'll give you that one. He's great.
Right. Well, I'm not gonna lie. I was not expecting that.
I wasn't either.
I was totally expecting, especially off the.
Okay.
Oh,
Not pewter then.
Isn't
What
that
am I
pretty
picturing?
silvery?
Like
Lead.
cauldrons are pewter, right?
Lead.
I guess it depends on how pure the pewter is. I'm not much into metallurgy, so I don't know.
Yeah, me either.
But I get what you're saying. He's a
But-
dark gray.
But now I
get it.
wonder, is that the cauldrons we were supposed to be picturing in the movies? That silver color? Because they have to get pewter cauldrons. I'm going to Google this later. Anyway. All right.
Yeah, no, I was totally expecting even off air to be like, off air.
Because we're doing it live.
Because,
We're not.
yeah.
This is recorded.
When we're done recording and talking about this afterwards to be like, yeah, no, you had me. You got me. But yeah, not evil.
Take the win.
Because that was my entire stance. That was the only way I was going to win this is not evil. I'm not saying good. He's just not evil.
I should have phrased our argument differently.
And-
Lesson learned.
Back to what I was saying about 40 minutes ago. It's all about definitions.
No, really. That's true.
You know, I was a debater in high school. Like,
Were you a master debater?
you know how many times I got that joke? I went to the state level 2 years in a row.
I did some nerdy stuff in high school, but it wasn't for debate.
Oh god, that was hard. And that was the thing, is that you could win your debates simply on definitions. Like, whatever you were up against, you could define it in a way that you could defend or that you could attack, depending on who got to define it.
I'm glad I wasn't in debate.
So, because of our premise here, evil, I got to win. If we were going inherently good or not, yeah, I don't have a leg to stand on.
Valid. Well, I will practice before our next duel. But
And we'll decide what that's going to be. I don't think that's fair to do.
Minerva.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not
I
cool.
don't. That might end our friendship.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for tuning in, Muggles. If you're jonesing for more witchy goodness between episodes, you can check us out on Instagram at Dusty Cauldron Podcasts, on Facebook at the Dusty Cauldron Podcast group, on email at dustycauldronpodcast@gmail.com, or check out our website, dustycauldronpodcast.com. You can subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening right now if you want to hear more. And remember that Dumbledore is not inherently evil. And
As much as it pains you to say.
pewter is actually silver colored. And don't forget to stir whatever you've got brewing in your own cauldron right now. Bye!